Hello, welcome to the value of everything. So, as you may have seen by the title, this one's going to be a little bit on the funny side of things. I would like to start with just a couple of pieces of information before I start on this, because with this kind of topic comes a lot of responsibility, and I need to outline to you my current, my circumstances and how am I doing these things. Now, firstly, I'd like to mention, as I'm putting forward my theories without much information to myself, this is purely conjecture. So, try to avoid to take what I am saying to you as the truth. Definitely try to deduct. I definitely want you to think along with me and deduce ideas and opinions and comment back wherever you can. Whether you can break down any of my points that I'm putting forward. So one outline that I'd like to state first is that I could be wrong on all of these points that I'm putting forward. So yeah, there is the truth and there is conjecture, and I'm afraid this may be a lot of conjecture here. So yeah, that's that item first. Let me just mention of you my intent as well. So some people obviously can use the religious aspect to create cults, to create conspiracy theorists, to build up break down other people so they can feel really big of themselves. Make themselves into some powerful person. I think the only one thing I would like to mention is that in some point in the future, if this podcast would ever expand, I would like to monetize it a little bit, and potentially go full time. But beyond that, there isn't really much of a. I don't want to be this massive occult leader where I put you all into a field and make you swallow some pills and we all die together in this weird session. My actual idea is to actually spread good in the world and let people grow up to have well balanced, well thinking minds, and to pursue virtue and to empower people to think that the power is in their mind and it's not all based upon fate. So that is my intent, and if you disagree, obviously just put forward some comments there as well. I need to keep this as fair and as balanced as possible so that because I'm holding a lot of power here and I need to definitely be questioned at every stage when I put forward this kind of material out. So one very famous dude named Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living," which I thoroughly agree. And this is one of the subjects which does obviously ride in the center and the fundamental of who we are and everything else. Like, so our who is our, why are we here, all those kind of things, and it leads all interconnects with each other, and it is a very powerful ideal. I would say that most reasoned thinkers would put forward the case that there is no God, and I agree with those points, especially in the terms of the classical idea of a god, of like this man in the sky in the clouds, watching over everybody, and he has all power and all knowledge at all the times, and he wrote out this Bible that basically just got misconstrued over time, and he's just very annoyed, and he's just sitting in the sky, and that doesn't really do too much either. Yeah, that's not probable. And the number one point is with the area of truth is that I cannot prove something as being correct when I do not know. So if I do not know, then I cannot state that this is true. So if I do not know of a life after death, then I cannot fundamentally state that is a truth. If there's no evidence there to support that, then we cannot proclaim that that's true. As if I could say, like, there's currently there's a little tiny green monkey on your back, jumping up and down, playing a silent flute. So that, as much as I can try and tell you that that's true, I cannot prove it as true. So then we cannot claim that as true. So let's just be clear on the main ideas, and the scientists and the major philosophers would stand by those claims. Now, this is the next thing. So now I think there's recent developments in mankind which start to blur the waters of these ideas. Now, one of the first ones, well, there's a few things which are occurring. One is this option of life extension. Now, I guess we are still mortal, and at some point when the universe explodes and dies, we will become nothing once again, and we'll just become some pieces of energy and matter once more, without any sort of power of thought. So we can still claim by that state. But yeah, so whenever I mention these things, it's very like, there's a little subtlety here with everything that I'm mentioning, of how close things are to being immortal, but not quite. But then a god being close to being all-knowing, but not quite. So just bear with me here with these ideas and conjectures, and let me take you with these pointers that I'm just trying to put forward here. Yeah, just one other little point that I'd like to make is that I'm just a very simple guy, uneducated. I've never really sort of achieved anything of any high standard academically. However, I do believe that just determined of just like being in like bars and meeting people and things like that, I am one of those people that do like to talk about engrossly into these subjects, and I will be that kind of person that talks about things in those environments. And as I don't commonly come across those people very often, I guess I don't sort of surround myself as much as I would like to around those people, I would say that I'm fairly rare, in the sense that I probably maybe 1 in 30 sort of on this ideal of trying to overthink about things. So that's where I stand, maybe in the self-intellectualizing of things. I don't know if that information gives you anything that's of any good. So yeah, so in those terms, things have been discovered by conjecture in the past. We have had the ancient Greek philosophers working out about atomic theory and things like that before, like a couple of thousands of years later, that they actually discovered what they mentioned as true. So there can be, and I don't know. Obviously, probably those Greek philosophers are far more intelligent than what we are now in our day and age. But they had a very lack of information, and yet they were able to put forward very good theories, and were actually substantiated and found correct. So let's try not to totally discount what is being said on the first marker. Obviously, just deduce it correctly and try and break it down so that I can be proven wrong in the traditional manner of being rebutted and finding that there's no way that this is possibly true. So please try and do that to me, and if we cannot deduce that what I say, if we're not able to break down this theory, then we've got something to work on still. Yeah, so let me just go back onto it. So we can potentially transcend our lifetime, which is interesting in that sense, in the point that we may have the ability to replace body parts and replace well, the most important part is our mind and our feelings, and all those things potentially could be downloaded onto massive storage devices which could replicate us. Okay, so just with that point, just make that as a marker of yourself, and that is definitely something to consider. As we continue with that progression, we potentially could be physical beings, or we could be virtual beings as well. So where if we do maintain ourselves of being virtual beings, then if you think of cloud storage and how everything is interconnected, we could potentially all be part of a cloud storage system. And this cloud storage system, even though it could be located in many places, is all highly interconnected and a singular organism. Now, this theory I'm putting forward to you right now is called the Singularity, where everything becomes one at some point. Now, the Singularity is the perspective of, and this ties in with, like, now there are some very interesting points here which I'll make across here. So if you could determine that the Singularity is this information point of a lot of information, not all information, but a lot of information, most information that could ever be attained over all of time, then that Singularity would be very godly in itself. But I'm not stating that there is a God, but I'm just saying that it does have that perception of the God. So you could potentially gravitate to certain truths in that realm of thinking. Now, no way am I stating that us being all on a cloud is being a God, but just see similarities in the way that minds have worked when it comes to religion in the past. Okay, so we have gone to the item of singularity. The next point would be virtual reality. Now, I remember when I was a kid and I first saw virtual reality in this computer convention, and I was amazed by it. Never really took off. I think this was like in the early 90s or maybe like mid 90s, and the graphics was horrendous, but you put it on and you had to push a little guider to make you move forward, and then you shot at things. But I was fascinated by the idea of virtual reality. And this is the interesting point at which I remember one thing I just read recently is that in the future we might have children, so maybe not this generation, maybe not the next one, the one after definitely, that child may not actually even live in the state of true reality. It might actually just be born into an interconnected environment of virtual reality in itself. So that just raises some just very quick fire up questions in my head straight away. If a child is in an environment which is like, now remember when I put this out there, I'm not stating that this is a religion or anything like that, but I'm just saying there are fair familiarities which potentially can connect dots in the way that mind have thought in the past, which is like the Garden of Eden. So this virtual reality environment makes us we wake up in this virtual reality environment where anything is possible, and we can attain anything of goods and richness in which we need at that point. So we can build vast towns in split seconds, and because we've got the power of the mind to just imagine things and create things in a split second, we can massively create and destroy things in our environment, and we can have pure abundance. And we the problem with this is that where anything is possible for mankind, you become very lazy, and you're like, oh, this is pretty pointless, we're doing not a lot, and there's not really much of a struggle which is occurring here in that realm. And then plus, say now we've got this combining with the actual terms of reality itself as well. So if you do have this world where you can multiply create, you do have this problem where you're not quite maybe exploring the ideas of the struggle, the curiosity, that human will to strive and fight and achieve things. In the ideas of like, as technology gets easier and easier, we lose patience over time because we're used to things being faster and quicker, and we're not used to just saying, no, we're going to meet you at this point, and then just wait there for half an hour for somebody to turn up. We just usually message them, and then they say they're going to be late, and then we just probably just play on our phones till that point. But even so, we lose patience in that sense. So if you think of how virtual reality does potentially change a lot of ideals. So if we have a society which is born and raised in a highly immersed virtual reality environment, this can create a lot of just underwilled people. Now, you also have the creation of artificial intelligence. Now, I don't see necessarily that the artificial intelligence is going to be like this individual and amazing entity that just takes over the world. I think it's going to be a fusion of us and artificial intelligence. There's going to be some kind of emergence there in the virtual realm where we both interconnect in itself. And this goes back into the singularity. I know this is all still, remember, conjecture by me, and I could be fundamentally wrong, and we could just be regressed back into the Stone Age. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But this is just an idea that I'm putting. These are just ideas which I'm putting forward. I definitely would like you to smash at them as much as you possibly can. Now, I did a little bit of I just pulled up some videos and did a little bit of reading on ideals of this idea of if we're living in a computer simulation. And one of the topics of conversation it does is it goes, right, if we are living in a purist computer simulation, then what would be the probability that they would run this ancestor simulation, where we choose to run a simulation of all of our caveman-like folk from the past, and they go through this mathematical probability of what would they really do that? What would be the purpose? What is you would have to require all this massive power of computing to do this task, and then there'll be like this multiple factor as well of like all these other individuals that are trying to do it at the same time. I think they might sometimes just miss one little element of the fact that this entity might not even be us in the first place. We've got to question that. So this simulation, this entity that ran that simulation might just be alien for all we know. And it put forward a couple of things and then created life. So there's a computer game that was created called Life, and it just required a few rules, and it looked like some kind of like game of Go, where you had birth, survive, and death. And so you had the reproducing factors, you had the surviving factors, and then you had the death factors. And within that, it created multiple sort of creatures, pumps, you name it. Lots of things were created by just a very simple code onto a computer system. So yeah, we have this point where we might be created by this alien thing. So now another point I'd like to put forward is that anything that has come into existence has been created by something at some point, or has given birth to something. So you never usually find that things come from nothing at all. However, the only thing that we can assume that has been created from nothing at all is the Big Bang. However, I'm not sure whether that potentially came from a black hole that wormholed into our space in itself. This is a very uneducated mind speaking to you about this kind of stuff. So just bear with me on those points. So when we come back to the idea of this simulation doesn't necessarily have to be all about noughts and zeros. However, there are certain things that potentially lean towards that. This could be a full energy and matter simulation, which we live in, and it was created, and we are being the study of. Or this is just like the noughts and ones, and we've got all these little we just got a headset on, like like the Matrix sort of style thing. Or we're living in this world where we've got these little robotic reflectors of lights that we're all surrounded in, and we all live in this little world. But that would be probably a lot more expensive. So it's just interesting perspectives just to take that. The world that we live in, if there was some kind of simulation being put forward, what would be the purposes of that simulation in the first place? Now, people would say, okay, it's just some like fantastic idea of just running a simulation of your ancestors, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's an alien system. Who knows what the actual system is running us on this? And then you've got to question what would be the purposes of that simulation. So if the simulation could be a study. So a study where it can gather and learn further information. And then this is another little theory that I put forward as well. And this ties, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on where your mindset is, with religion. This could be a training protocol which we go through, where we train and in a continuous struggle environment. So if the muscle is not put under any type of workout, then it becomes very weak. So we are pushed through a certain set of physical strengthening training programs until we get through to the other side. So that fits in beautifully with religion, but obviously the religion part wouldn't like the fact that I'm mentioning that this God is us and this in this big technical system computer majiggy. But I'm just saying that these are little comparisons that potentially could match up with each other. Now, just basically when I get back to these points, just remember that my state of mind might be very fanciful and might make me want to think in this manner. Remember that man always likes to think themselves as the center of the world. So just always consider that when I talk about these things. I might want to pump up my own ideal of ourselves, and there is beautiful things. The most complicated thing in the universe that we know of is our brains. There are amazing things out there, but it's just it's very important just to grasp that I could be just praising ourselves as mankind, and it is a distraction of what is the truth. So there are. Now this is where we get to a point of science and maths, which is not going to be my strong area. There is a number of, what shall I say, numbers in the background of what we work with. So this is a certain little element of what substantiates us living in a simulation. There is gravity, which has a certain fine-tuned number, which puts us in a state where the universe doesn't expand and fly out to nothingness, or doesn't compress into a tiny solid ball. So there is a certain element of numbers which surround us. There is the Fibonacci number, which basically which gives us perfect forms of how a shell is created and how waves happen from, like the sea waves. There's a certain calculation which occurs that just seems to be interwoven within the construct of the nature of our reality. So just like to put forward those pointers. There's something else called the cosmological constant, which has been fine-tuned to 125 decimal places, and if you get fine-tuned to that sort of that amount of numbers, then you do start to think to yourself, well, is there somebody creating, or is there multiple creators, or loads of people that have combined to create a system that evolves into this? Now, there is scientific theory to say that we live now in a multiverse, so this fine-tuning is possible, and there isn't some massive creator out there. So we have all these different combinations, so that can destroy that argument which is put forward. But definitely things to ponder on the fact that there are a number of numbers that are in the background, and there is maths that surround us that we can substantiate as in our reality, and is fairly interesting to put forward. next part is there is a reward mechanism in place, and if you could potentially give me some ideas of maybe how this occurs, I'll be very welcome to any theories. But we do have a system of virtue and vice. So somewhere, maybe purely on evolutionary factors, we somehow, when we give to charity, we feel very good and warm about the fact that we have taken value and food resources away from ourselves and given it to somebody at random who will never ever see us. And the logical grounding of us getting anything is like this total indirect sort of gratuity that is provided to somebody else. Yeah, we expect nothing in return. Yeah, we feel good for that. So inbuilt into our makeup, we do have the element of virtue, which is constructive within us. If we put ourselves and concentrate and focus on our virtues to set them within the mean, we attain the highest states of happiness. And a man of virtue or a lady of virtue is going to have it's going to be highly productive, very kind, good to people, provide a lot of wealth to the world. All of those amazing factors there. And if you pursue the lines of self-gratification and you decide to fall into not doing much and playing those computer games and which don't improve your human capital, and use pornography and eat chocolate bars and crisps and all, and not exercise your body, you will get the trade-off against that. So I guess in terms of our survival, you could put forward some very good cases. The fact that it is all just interwoven into our own evolutionary cycle, that we do require these things. However, the altruistic sort of elements are very interesting, and that is only part. I think we're the only creatures that. Well, I think some other creatures may. I think dolphins try and help humans sometimes. I'm not quite. Well, dogs do that as well. But I guess a dog would do that just knowing that there's the feeder there, but they don't do exactly charitable things of where they get no return back. So there is something. There is certain schools of fish that will put themselves down in acts of bravery, and so there again. Yet still, we do have this element of virtue and vice. I'm just going to keep that there anyway. To maintain as a theory, but that virtue and vice element can be quite easily substantiated with the fact of our evolution. So there is that element there. Take that on board as you will. It's something to consider. Right, so just reviewing a few of my notes. I've got this has got a little bit of notes on it, this topic of conversation. So some of the points I was mentioning before, if you want to get any more notes, and anthropic principle is one of the other elements that I was just mentioning about with the cosmologic cosmological constant. So let's start rounding everything up again. We have So time has progressed. We have created a virtual reality environment, and we do not have the will. We're not having the daily struggles of the lives that we have currently. That is dangerous upon us, and you can see that potential there in the future. That's just one of those just a glaringly obvious thing. You think about the children who play on the computers and don't read books and intellectualize things and all those kind of things. So potential perceived dangers of the future, and there could be a reason of coming back to a prior life to get ourselves retooled up for that kind of environment. Now, it's very interesting that we are alive at the dawn of this information age, and we are on this exponential rise where we are most definitely about to conquer virtual reality and master it. And we do have, I think that virtual reality is there. AI is going to be probably a little bit past that. And then AI and transhumanism, where you can and life extension is going to be probably a little bit closer to those times, maybe in 2050 or something. So you do have a number of these things which have combined, which start to test the waters of the nature of reality. And it's definitely things to consider. Now, I'm going to really start to go a little bit out there now. So you would have a singularity that has been created, and this singularity, you've got to start stating that is this point of time our state of time? So are we the first ones at it? Are we the very first ones who have ever been there before? And usually, whenever we've studied these things, we're not really the center of the earth, and we're never the very first ones who have ever come on board to be something. So, there's a high probability that we're not the first ones to ever attain this part of the singularity. The part of where we're all uploaded into the singularity, and we have the struggle, and then we come back, and all those kind of things. So you've got to think that maybe a singularity has done this in the past, and then it's tried to recreate the environments again, and then another singularity is created within another singularity. So this again, you've got to put forward the scientist at that point to say, what about the immense amount of computing power that you would require to create if you had singularities inside singularities inside singularities? So you've definitely got to question the possibility of those things. You got to think to yourself as well, okay, so if we are these machined machines where we're made of silicone and we're intertwined, and we can live off the universe's energy and matter. There will be also there is still the chance. Well, there's still mortality there. There is a finite amount of time in our universe before all the energy dries up, and the simulation of the singularity will potentially what's the word? There's a religious term as well for this, where you sort of go to the next state of mind or the next higher branch of being. I just want to throw those ones in there. I don't want to really just keep it all in a religion, but there's another point in time where all the matter and all the energy is potentially consumed, burnt out, and then that singularity ceases to be, and is frozen there in time. So just ponder on that ideal as well. There's other little elements of just of the nature of our reality and everything else as well. We are the only ones who know and behold the actual galaxy of it itself. So we as people, if we weren't alive, we would be the only ones who actually can behold the universe, the sun, the skies, and everything else out there, which is out there. So without our existence, then there would be no existence of the universe in itself. So just ponder on those little areas. I'm not sure exactly where I'm trying to go with that idea, but just put that to a point for you. So I know this is very, very trippy and very strange and a little bit difficult to get your head around. I did hear some other theories in the sense that potentially once the singularity has manifested itself in this virtual reality realm and everything like that, it will then try to. This is immense amounts of ideas and theories and nothing with much information that is backed up here, so just bear with me. It tries to become the elements and the nature and the energy of itself in things. So it tries to immerse beyond the physical matter world. So just put that little idea out there of just maybe some kind of mission statement or goal for the singularity. And maybe the singularity just wants to reach back to the other singularity in the first place and find out where that singularity came from. So I don't know. This continuous realm of discovery. So we're always like mankind is always put into this idea of just always trying to think, and the idea and everything leads to us trying to think further and to understand and study and contemplate and work out and try and reason with everything that we are. So we are reasoned beings, and we're trying to make understandings and goals of all of these things. So just bear that in mind, that regardless of who you are and where you come from, there is a continuous life study which occurs, and even when you come from yourself to the highest possible, like this weird singularity being and all those kind of things, you still have this curiosity that's there, the virtue of curiosity and discovery, which everything sort of centers and focuses and leads upon. And does that give us? That terms of curiosity is our fundamental meaning to life. And so, actually, I just remember one thing. Actually, just bringing it back. I remember the Star Trek one where they sent out the satellite to discover information, and this satellite came back, and the satellite had all of the information of the world, and it did seem like kind of godly. It was very interesting science fiction idea. Now, just remember, like a lot of what I'm mentioning here, we're pretty very close to the realms of science fiction, but I'm trying to put forward these ideas in the realms of what is possible as well. So these are theories which you can ponder your mind at. Now, coming back to you, because I don't really want people to just walk away from this and just go, okay, well, that's bloody marvelous, isn't it? We're just some kind of bloody test mice in this big simulation system and things like that. It's fundamentally, I don't. There's a good case that I'm probably not true in the first point. Fundamentally, everything comes back down to your life as well, and what you have done in your life and your own happiness. And it seems that if you do not pursue virtue, then you will fall into the trap of unhappiness. So just bear that in mind, in the sense that if there is any kind of system in place or anything like that, or a creator, the the Creator wants virtue more higher than anything else that has ever been conceived. So, if there isn't a Creator and we just cease to be, then still virtue is the most important thing to possess. So again, bear that in mind when applying oneself to your life. So regardless of whether, like, I remember this is like something to do with religion as well, where something like pagan's theory or something like that. So you might as well be religious regardless of what you do, because if you're not religious, then you go to hell anyway. I'm not stating that point, but there's a very good theory behind that of being virtuous. Regardless of what is happening and where we are and all of those elements, the main driver and the main goal of you is to be as virtuous and as curious and in the ideas of learning and discovering things as much as you possibly can. And whatever the nature of our reality is, that is our fundamental goal. The guys have worked this one out ages and ages ago. And there isn't really. You don't need to prescribe to a major religion. You don't need to prescribe to a cult. You don't need to prescribe to anything other than the state of your own mind. Fundamentally, it seems that if you are motivated and you can push yourself forward and you can spring ideas, then you will be rewarded in your sense of happiness and what you've provided to the world. So let's marvel in that fact. Regardless of what happens, sorry, I'm just getting myself into a horrible right turn situation, which I do not like. I had the best opportunity to turn right as well then, and I just missed it. Yeah, so just apply that to yourself. That we don't know. Really, I don't know what's going to happen next to the sense and what's going to happen once we die. And that's another really interesting concept. That once we do die, what happens then? Are we just a data log, or are we just somebody that rises and connects into the singularity again? Or it's an interesting concept. But regardless of what you do, you need. If in the worst possible in the circumstance that there is no coming back, then we need to strive for virtue and empower oneself to become the best we possibly can be. I would love to turn right. What else is there? There'll be some other little bits. I cannot believe I've just been stuck here for this much time and still cannot turn right. This is unbelievable. Okay, now's my opportunity. Let's take it. Right. As it is yours, it is your opportunity to... Let's roll back to Socrates. The unexamined life is not worth living. So is there some hidden meaning in what he's mentioning to us in the first place? You've got to consider that for a purpose. It's interesting that the play that in this terms that we live in this daily struggle of a number of things. It is interesting to put out there that also, just going back to the singularity has created this environment where there is a lot of suffering and everything else like that. So the ethical thing about people die every day, and there's a lot of horrible things that happen in this world. So to create this virtual reality environment where these things happen is kind of extreme. But this might mean that as opposed to the opposite, where we live in a state where basically nothing happens, and then we live in a state where everyone's just lazy and then nothing happens at all. So just bear that in mind. This ties into the fact of like us living in like the Garden of Eden, and then living in a heaven, and then like heaven is, or this world where everything is plentiful is too much for us, and then we get sent back to the land of the struggle. Yet we're fighting to strive for virtue. So be very wary of all of these things. It's very interesting how science and religion sort of fuse together on these parts, and I think that if you try to apply the scientific method and to these items, you still come up with these quite extreme theories, and it's interesting how it will take you to some fairly close connections to religiosity. But I'm not stating by any means that there should be any religion there. But going back to the point, I think, again, the most important thing that you potentially can still strive from all of this is that there's the goal is virtue. I don't know why it is and where it is, but it seems to be the only thing that works for us in this game. So we have to be beholden to that, and potentially, if you think of it in the self sense of that, if we do become the singularity, we are the God of our own creation in itself. So we are the empowerment of everything else. So just bear that in mind. We might be just this single thing that's just been sent off from the singularity, and we are everything and an all-knowledgeable thing, and we've been sent down. Remember the song, What If God Was Not One of Us? And then we just get sent back out, and then that story of Jesus sort of combines with us in that story, and then we have the story of oppression. But then that story of oppression is like, this is the wildest exercise of all time if we're going to try and do this kind of exercise. And I don't really want to just make it as that this is just an exercise in general, just so we can just do a bit of training to do the next thing, because it is very important just to understand that there is definitely concepts of evil in this world, and the virtuous ones have to strive to break them down and stuff. So now I do sound like a religious preacher. So yeah, I don't really want to trivialize the fact of like we've just this theory that evil is just evil, and it's just a lesson for us to learn, and it's just a strengthened mechanism for us. And because I'm starting to fall down the realm of it's like everything's sort of already pre-designed and everything's made up, and we're the determinism. That's what I do not want to have happen to you. I definitely want you to be empowered with the thoughts of you have to create. You have to have a creative mind and a continuously thinking mind, and examining the principles and applying moral virtue to everything that you do, so that you can strive to be the best being that you can be. So that when it comes to your deathbed, and regardless of what happens at the end, which cannot be proven at all, you will have that little slight smile on your face, knowing that you've done some good in the world, rather than that idea of shock that your life has been just a complete waste of time and you never amounted to nothing, when you literally just needed to test that muscle out and push it a bit forward and practice it. And we are our repetition in itself. Everything that we are is repetition and strengthening. So yeah, just there Shut up. Right, there are ideas for you. Again, I just want you to just remember all the things that I mentioned at the start. I don't want you to start going crazy and starting your own religious cult and all of those things. I want you to question me. I want you to put forward good, reasoned arguments that can discount what I say, or potentially provide some further evidence to make us think even further. And just let the idea go out there, and let's see where it goes. If the idea is incorrect, then we have exercised the mind, and at least we've exercised our minds, and it's given us a better sense of our own reality rather than being stuck in a life of just being just living in a continuous reaction to things. So I've really enjoyed that this podcast. It's been quite enjoyable for me. I hope it's been enjoyable for you as well. And I will be with you for tomorrow's podcast. Well, you can just click on in about a couple of seconds. But thank you very much, and till next time. Hello. Oh my gosh. So, second part of the episode. You probably just realised that you're now listening to the rants of a madman, or hopefully not. I will just explain that I have been, as soon as I sort of completed the episode, a number of things popped into my mind, and I did a little bit more research on a number of things, and it was clear to me that I was not content with completing the episode at that point. What the main point I wanted to put forward is these are all, majority of this is conjecture, and you can take any of these ideas and you can deduce them and break them down and prove to me that I am incorrect at any stage you choose to. So again, I think the main point I want to get across is that this is purely a thought experiment, and it shouldn't be taken for granted as the truth at any stage. So be very wary of that. All right. So just sort of think it as if I've put some giant zeppelin in the air, and we've all realized that it is filled with hydrogen, and it's just exploded and crashed. So we can always just oh my god, there's people walking on the road. We can always just acknowledge that these ideas are totally bullshit, and as I'll keep on going on, I do wish to have these ideas shot down, right? Because if I didn't want to have any of these ideas shot down, that's a little bit dangerous, because I'm sort of preaching to you and I'm saying that this is correct and this is the truth, and I'm inflicting a number of, I'm putting power on you because I'm saying that this is the nature of your reality. And that's where a lot of problems arise. Okay, so a few ideas that popped into my head afterwards. Remember that the human mind. This is still. I'm trying to discount of. I'm trying to give you a fairly balanced perspective on things. So remember, the human mind will always try to create meanings as to why we are here, and try to observe that within me. Just remember that there's, I think there's some kind of scientific study to find that there are parts of our brain which is very susceptible to mysticism and ideas of an afterlife and how that we are special and centrally based in this world. And from that point, you just got to think to yourself, am I under that spell? And am I going a little bit sort of doolally in my own self-importance? So remember that. Remember that little feature. So I hadn't really organised my notes too well. It's a bit randomised, so I might just be shooting all over the place, but let's just go with it anyway. Probably if you listen to my last podcast, your mind would have been very spaced out and going, whoa, where are we going with this? So I need to take you back to that point at the point where I mention singularity. Now, one of the points with singularity I mentioned was that there was tests that occurred, or tests for a future state, or there was studies occurring for knowledge. Now, one thing that we as humans quite enjoy is biodiversity. So where we have plenty of plant materials and creatures that are fine examples, it gives us ideas and it creates medicines and fantastical things that we can apply to other areas of life. So when we're all sitting down there and we're watching a nice documentary on the wildlife, there is a potential that is occurring in the spectrum of a singularity observing us. Remember, again, shoot me down if you think this theory is going a bit weird. Not weird, I'm saying if you've got a good argument against this theory. Next up, there is a law of nature which is in place. So just cast your minds onto the fact that this law of nature, everybody has to apply to it. That sort of ties in with the fact of the original laws of the creation of the game, the Life, I think it was called, and where you have birth, survive, and death. Basic concepts and rules of nature that we have to be applicable to. Let's go to this point. So this is just pure theories which I'm throwing out there, but we do have a fairly unexplained part to us, which is our dream state. Now, I'm just connecting the dots here, and by no means I'm mentioning that this is proven as right, but when we go to sleep, we live, we have our dreams, and these dreams have any possibility in that realm. So when we fall asleep, these dreams, we can do anything potentially. If so, we do hear that some people can live in a dream state or go to a dream state and then be fully in control of the environment that they're in. So that nicely tails up with virtual reality, where we do have the ability of the possibilities are endless in a virtual environment. I know that a dream state isn't quite like as vivid and sort of like you're there. It's a little bit different to an actual proper you're right in a conscious environment. Maybe it's a tricky one to sort of diverge the point, but where we have these dreams, I think dreams are quite rare to. I know animals do this and dream thing as well, but the application of these dreams is very interesting, and how it. I think I'll just leave that with the ideas. I'm going to put that to one side and just let you ponder on that one, because there's a lot of little connections which go on upon dream states and virtual reality, and I'll just throw some other things out there. So. Is there? I know that as time progresses, you get more ill and you go more irrational and mad. And if you do not have dreams, sorry, I don't know where I was going with that one. So yeah, once you have those dreams, you have to almost download yourself. You have to put the subconscious into action of the conscious, and literally download and back up what has happened. So, are we downloading and backing up into the what was the word? What was the word? I've forgotten even the word. The center point. I can't even remember what the word was anyway. Other little things. So yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. I'm really just punching in a few ideas, and this is all becoming a little bit more sci-fi than actual truths that I'm putting forward. But it's always just interesting just to play these mind games, get the mind working. If it's good for you, then just play along with it. But just know where from the position that I'm taking this. Visible light spectrum. If you ever look at the visible light spectrum to what we can see, there's like gamma rays, X-rays, and all those different rays that we have no ability to see. You will be amazed in the terms of what is possible that is out of our range of vision. So. It's kind of interesting in that respect. I think yeah, I'll leave that point there, just at that point. So another thing about our lives is that we're very biocentrism. So we as people only know that we are real or we are true. So I'm saying that to you, and then you're thinking to yourself, "Yeah, I'm the only person that's real." It's kind of a weird little position there taken. So if you know that you're the only one that you know who is true, then it's possible that everything else around you could be a construct of a virtual reality. Crazy as that may seem. So there are little connection dots there. Where else have I been going with this? Sorry while I Pause 1 second. I just need to get off this junction and then get my notes back up at all. My brain isn't really in the greatest of flow as it was this morning. I do apologise. And I'm trying to check quickly some notes while I'm driving along, so it's a little bit dangerous. So, I do apologise. Alright, so going back to my notes. Okay, yeah, so coming back, sorry about the little pause. There's... With the brain doesn't like to... There's a fear of death. Everybody has the fear of death and the fear of questioning their deaths. And then the fear of questioning their lives and then questioning how futile their lives is in the whole grand scheme of things, where you're positioned in the world. You're just a little speck on a massive planet who is only around for a very short time in space, which this space is humongous, and we're just in a little galaxy of many galaxies, and one of the time in the future our galaxy is going to smash into another galaxy, and there's a multiverse beyond the universe that this galaxy sits within. So why it's all a little bit like, what is the point? And there's interesting study into thinking how the brain has adapted itself to curtail that and to give it that spiritual meaning side of things. I'm not really, again, pumping the value of, again, I'm just giving a little bit more of a balanced perspective, and it could just be my state of mind and things which have occurred in my culture and movies, televisions, things like that, which is shaping certain thought patterns which occur to you in the realms of how I can see potential for our existence to grow to a certain point. Yeah, what do we have next on my massive list, which I can't read because I've done too many words. Alright, so other notes that I made was regards to a ascension. So like Sikhs and I think Buddhism do feel they have like a process of reincarnation. So once you die, you are reincarnated into one position higher than what you are. Now, on a matter sense, it is quite possible that some of the atoms that are in your body was previously other animals that were crawling around this earth at different points in time. And obviously, if you've consumed other animals at certain points, then you've consumed that matter, and you are basically the matter of all those animals and all those plant creatures. You are a reincarnation of that biomatter. So in that sort of sense, we know that is true. But on the sense of consciousness, we cannot know that the consciousness is true, and we cannot really be like. I remember there's like old tribes that would eat other tribes, and they think they will be consuming the other person's spirit and soul and things like that. So I don't perceive that as totally true. Well, it cannot be really true. There's nothing to suggest that you can absorb somebody else's soul. However, in terms of ascension, when we go to the singularity and we say that this singularity has selected a certain point in time just before we commence virtual reality, that we have used men, and say if there is a circumstance where people have died before us, there is a certain level of ascension for the ones that can be tested the most and be the most virtuous to assume a position in the world of virtual reality. So here's some little ideas in that respect. Another one, I need a little bit more of a scientist to explain this one to me, but can I make the assumption here that time is a constant? So, but somebody said that if so either it's on a linear direction scale from one starting point to an end point, in a straight line, the time goes. I understand that from Einstein's theory of relativity, like we can attain any point of time depending on where we are in space. So if once we start studying the ideas of time, things start to go very strange a little bit, and especially if the way that we're perceiving our lives and where we are. I'm not sure how I'm going with this and how it's all connecting the dots, but I think there's something interesting about our perception of time and how it applies to how it would apply to a singularity, and how the singularity would perceive time and use time. And the question here is if there is this time that's running out, or whether there is a time that is a constant. So interesting things in that respect. Another point I was trying to think about with the singularity is that I did mention that this singularity, if it did exist, would get to a state where a certain number of things could happen to it, which would be either a big freeze, a big rip in time space, or a big crunch where everything gets crushed into a star or a supernova event. So in each one of those circumstances, the singularity would have to try to transcend itself into the next state. So at that point, it has to push itself in a way to go beyond our time. Now, there's another theories that go out there called dark matter. Have you heard? That's basically where we worked out the amount of gravity which keeps the galaxies together in a spinning spiral. We've realised that there's not enough central mass, physical mass of what we can see to pull everything and keep everything into place. So this dark matter potentially could be a way that the singularity can go and transcend beyond our light exposure and exposure to and our sensory data to and to survive beyond certain space events, which would annihilate it if it was just a generally normal human being. Let's just explore a bit more about consciousness. So consciousness is a very weird thing, and it's it's highly understood, really, in terms that we think about things, and we have understanding of our own being, and when we look into a mirror, we understand that we are individual of individual thoughts. There is something that's happening on an electronic level inside our heads, which enables the processing of our consciousness. So if we could tap into that consciousness, the consciousness is constructed of electromagnetic waves which are flowing through our brains, and it's using the memory banks throughout our brains to construct to process our consciousness. I think that's fairly close to the truth there on that point. And if we had a way of just so if you think of a computer, there is things called like the hard drive where you store your data from. There is the processor which processes the data and is basically the means to which the signals can pass through the data from one side to the other. You have certain things like random access memory where you can store and keep and you can do a number of calculations with the data at the same time. So if you think of those concepts with the brain and the consciousness, there is something there that for some reason you could have a dead brain and it doesn't have that electricity and the pulses which go it, and the oxygen that flourishes the brain and keeps everything alive. And then there's instantly a dead brain which is oxygen starved, and the cells are depleted of oxygen, and then they start to die and regress, and then there's no way of firing electronic pulses through the synapses, and we are essentially brain dead. So there is something to be mentioned of the consciousness. Now, consciousness, I guess you can have. You'll have the debate of, well, this is just inbuilt into our evolution, and this evolution is just a construct, and the evolution has enabled us to have consciousness of ourselves. Did do a little bit of I did this TED Talks which were banned or something, and they did say that mind-altering drugs enabled us at some points. I can't really prove this is true or not. At some points to experiment with our own consciousness, and these mind-altering drugs were were behind a lot of the first cave paintings, and how we're seeing in multiple dimensions by reprocessing what we see in a 3D environment onto a 2D environment. So there is mention of that consciousness playing with altered states of mind, and it again, if nobody's ever tried to alter their state of mind, well, I guess everyone must have changed their state of mind. That gives us a very interesting and challenging point in terms of our state of reality. So if now there are just drugs out there which give us better focus, better feelings, and give us sort of like motion sensory sort of data back in return, which may not be true. And it's obviously from a philosopher's perspective, it shouldn't really be your when we always mention about the philosopher, we should try and keep ourselves to ourselves and apply everything to ourselves as much as we can. So just remember that when it comes to drugs and taking drugs, that we should always just try to keep in the realms of reality as much as we can, and keep everything down to ourselves. But to mention, there are certain drugs out there, like hallucinogens, which can definitely change visual and musical sense data. And there we have again another connection to virtual reality. And virtual reality, where the mind changes colors and states, and we perceive things, we can hear things talking to ourselves. Now, the singularity, is that subconscious? I mean, now I'm going, this is just wild conjecture here, but there is that perspective to take. So just remember that when if drugs are, there is something in human beings who they have a drive to always be curious about the state of our reality and how it can be changed, and there is plenty of amazing things which have occurred from changing states of reality and obtaining different perspectives on the way that we view things. So you got to think of all like the music that's ever been created over time. A lot of the greatest albums have been induced under a spell of drugs, and the drugs appear to open up parts of our brain which appear to give us creative abilities. That is that part. Yeah, but I think one thing that you just to take one more step back is from a young girl in a tribe in the Amazon to a Wall Street banker, we are subjected to the same rules of and the laws of nature. So remember that in that sense, that when I was applying the ideals of virtue and vice, when I'm trying to put this idea together with the ascension theory as well, we have good basis to that, and that does tie in with religion as well. There's a lot of religion where if you're a good person and poor, you can be good. You can ascend to heaven, and if you're a bad person, and rich, even though you might be fairly charitable, but you're not really given as much as what a poor person is in percentage terms, then you are not welcome at the gates of heaven. And so things to perceive there in the sense of a singularity. More questions to ask. Is there any means or way that we can contact the singularity? Now, the singularity if you think of it, is just us anyway, and all the information and a supercomputer are thrown into the mix at the same point in time. And the problem is, even if we are trying to talk to the singularity, the only singularity that we can contact is the one that we create ourselves, and not the one that is existent around us. So we can ask questions about the beginning and the meaning, but then it doesn't necessarily know as much as what the other singularity knows. And if there was any way of means of talking to the other singularity, then the potential is that a singularity would come back and say, well, I don't have the answer either. So very interesting mix when we create that singularity. So the singularity must love biodiversity. The singularity is trying to survive and ascend to the next status. This singularity is probably going to be very shit hot in understanding everything. So me with my little tiny inferior brain will never be able to even to understand anything in that sense. There was one little thing that always just tickled me sometimes, is that especially with philosophy, and it always kicks me a lot of times, is that sometimes when we're looking for the biggest, when we're searching for the biggest questions, and we're like trying to find it, and it's unbelievably hard to discover what the hell is going on and all this kind of stuff, it usually find that the answer was right before you, right in front of your face, and you didn't even realize it in the first place. And I think that's kind of where you scratch the surface of the meaning of life. It whacks you, and then you realize, this was it all along. So there's that sense of feeling there again. So I don't know, is this part of my brain working against me, or is this another idea which is hitting something else on a different level? So yeah, something that hits you in front of your eyes in an idea level. I think it's very close, but you're not quite sure about it. But the answer can never be obtained. Think of it in that respect. Again, all of these theories don't really give the meaning, and the meaning seems to just go into this big spiral of indefinites. Of this multiple singularity going into another singularity, into another extension of our space-time, into another extension of our space-time. So everything is going into this continuous flux of eternity, and everything's multiplied into a multiverse in that respect. So we do seem to be doing that. And everything seems to be derived and geared towards discovery and understanding and learning and testing things. So interesting things about that. I would like to say that there is things to be mentioned about love and beauty, and how our emotions react to those things, and they can be, or they can perceive and feel very real to us. It would be nice and enchanting to know that those feelings are not of this earth and are unworldly, and it's not just the evolution of the mind which is giving us those blessed feelings. However, all the science and all the backing can suggest that it is, but it's amazing feelings that can be conjured up just by the sheer craziness of random events of a single cell structure building up to what we are today, and the immense feelings and the immense beauty and the immense complexity and the all of the ridiculous amounts of feelings and emotions. And if you think of all the things that you've ever been through, and that's just you, but then we multiply that on an epic scale against all of us and everything that's happened in all of time, that boggles the mind that there is that much emotion and feeling and learning that's occurred in the world, and a lot of wasted efforts. So it's interesting to see how that applies in the sense of somebody creating that for us. So the Singularity creating that for us, or the Singularity having hands off creating that for us. So it's interesting how that unearthly feeling of love, compassion, and heaven, and our reaction to virtue is happening, and these are just the nature's feelings. They're nothing more special or more than just nature's feelings, and drugs are not. Drugs are just tapping into an extended version of that feeling, but it's all just simulationed feeling. Another thing which would be is that there is a component to life of good and evil which occurs. Now, I do stand by the claim that nobody knowingly knows what evil that they're doing evil, and if they do know that they're doing evil, then they do not know that eventually one day it will hurt themselves. So I do agree with that true statement, but it is very interesting that there is this balance in the state of, personal evil is the most relevant thing that occurs, and what happens in the family and all those things are the most important things to measure oneself by. But this continued challenge of the good and the evil, and there is one hell of a lot of evil out there in this world. There's evil people, evil characters which roam this earth, which are potentially at the point of no return, and there's no way of snapping them out of their mindset, and they're living in the moment of this pure evil. So it's kind of strange how that construct has happened. I think one of the interesting things about the human mind is that the human mind thinks that there's just like this evil devil character that's taking over the mind of people, yet the trick is that people are in control of their own mind, and they don't quite realize the evil that is occurring, and usually the evil that they're doing is they're only doing to themselves. So if a Singularity has constructed something and done and created something which we know, which something like as strange as what evil is, it's a very interesting theory. So now that we have this misguided thing where at first we thought that if we are just the strongest one on the block, then we can attain the most amount of fertile women, and we can attain the biggest reproductive strategy to succeed in this world. However, as we have grown a larger brain and we've got consciousness, then we have constructs of our mind to state that what we are doing is evil and isn't helping our fellow man, and is harming ourselves and is harming other people. And we have compassion. We don't like to see things in danger or is hurt. We have all these amazing feelings as a construct of our own consciousness, So once these are applied in the sense of the singularity, it's interesting how there is this continuous struggle and this continuous fight with the realization of the evil doings that we do onto ourselves in our immediate proximity, and what is done on a global level, where politicians will put in requests to drop bombs on innocent people. So this construct of good and evil must, if it is a construct of the singularity, is an important factor in the state of mind and the state of reality and the state of virtual reality that we actually live in. There was a point to that, but it's just gone from the mind. I'd love to know all the thoughts that I've forgotten about and put them into another podcast. It would definitely be interesting. So yeah, I'm not sure where the thoughts are going with the good and evil thing, but I think I mentioned in the previous podcast that there is a continuous struggle which is occurring, and that is what the struggle and the repetition of this this fight that occurs is part of us. I remember always remembering some kind of documentary with George Lucas from who directed and produced all the Star Wars, the first Star Wars movies, or you remember him really more for the episode 4 to 6. But he always says that there is this story of oppression and liberty inside humankind's mind, and how if you tell that story to people, it does resonate with everybody, and it is like the most flourished story of all time. If you think of, like, on the Internet Movie Database, the number one movie is, I think I'm pretty sure, and this is Shawshank Redemption, which is about the oppression of one person who was unjustly sentenced to a crime that he did not do, and it was under very unfortunate circumstances as well. And he was oppressed over all of this time, and then eventually he he gained his liberty by means of his own deception, and then amazing movie. Anyway, if you haven't watched it, just bloody watch it tonight or this morning and stop everything, because it is a beautiful movie. And so it's interesting how this story of our own oppression is interwoven into our own psyche, and how there is always this sort of mind of, like, who is in control of us, and who I remember even just talking to, like, the lads once. I always got mentioned if I suggested that we go to a certain bar or anything like that, they'll be like, "Oh my god, you're trying to bloody control us, and it's bloody, I've had enough of you," and a lot of interesting points in that respect. So there is the mindset of the control and the oppression and all those things, and I don't know whether that is any kind of construct, could be any kind of construct of a singularity in itself. Let's try and throw a few more questions at the singularity. So, if the singularity was all-knowing and was a being that knew everything, would it really be that bothered in continuing once it had all the information that it thought was necessary? I don't know. Well, seeing how my mind's been just tricking on, I don't know whether this is a differently applicable. I think there's just endless possibilities of ideas, and I don't think there can ever be anything that where you can literally just cover every single dime and grain of information, particularly when you've got different people's lives. And if you want to just kick off a ancestor simulation, then you've got so many things to study all at the same time, which would be amazing. And again, with the singularity, with this super speeded sense of information that gets passed around and learned things, I think one thing that is always interesting is that if you did have this super fast intellect and all that kind of stuff, even if you are a very intelligent person, you do like to sit back and behold things every once in a while and just go, wow, that is a beautiful moonlight in the background, or stars in the sky, or that's a beautiful lake and that's a beautiful mountains, and behold beauty and when they see it. So does the singularity need to have this super fast understanding of everything, or understands that, hey, we need to slow down here a little bit and enjoy life? Because if you race away at this astronomical speed, then we are losing touch with ourselves. So, again, another thing I think we should always just mention here with the singularity is that there's this evil component, this evil civilization in Star Trek, which is called the Borg. Let's not forget about those punks. And they are evil in the sense that they will not be reasoned with, and they will take over your mind and thoughts and technology without you, without your expressed wish to do so. So there is something immoral and dangerous and evil in the sense of a singularity theory. Now, that's an interesting ideal, and you got to just put that out there. I don't think with information and philosophy and stuff like that, once you become more educated, that you will become this pure evil. I'm going to destroy everything just to get my way. However, I do think that there is a great lesson to be learned there. I don't know whether, but I think one of the main things that we can think of here, and I just want to go back to the point, is that there is a certain beauty to life. There is sense in wonder of things. It could be just the construct of me living in an atheist world where I think of everything being so fantastical. But life is a very enjoyable thing, and we do need to pursue happiness in every way, shape, or form. And even if it was just wasted efforts and there isn't any kind of singularity or anything purpose to this end, then at least we had a good time in the process. And the only way that we could have had a good time is to have that longest lasting, loving time on this earth. So I hopefully have rounded that up for you nicely. I hope I've thrown out there lots of mind bombs and everything else, and please deconstruct my arguments and put forward arguments against and opposed, and we can find out if there is any grain of truth to what I say. So thank you very much for that. I was a little bit in a mind freeze on the way home, especially when I was trying to go through a few notes at the same time. Thanks for the patience as always. We'll try and get ourselves a little bit more grounded onto Earth for tomorrow's episode. So thank you for staying with me on this, and I'll speak soon. Thank you very much. Hello. All right. I have now done 2 podcasts on the meaning of life and why we are here, which is insane. I don't really talk about this stuff that often. It's usually thoughts that are passed within my mind and never shared. So, you have got the ramblings of a crazy man. Anyway, there were more thoughts. I was a little bit disappointed with the last podcast, just in terms that I was sort of reading out a shopping list, and it was a bit annoying after a while. There was lots of pauses, and there wasn't a fantastic flow of words. And really, I would have preferred it just to be a nice, like a. Oh no, have I got a flat tire? Oh, shit. Hey there, back again. Just had a little bit of an awful morning, having a flat tire, so that always makes your day. So, I might just copy that podcast in there because it's probably quite funny. Right. What did I want to talk about this morning? Because I'm so filled up with a load of anger. Right. Give me 1 second while I collect the mail. Wrong mail. No mail there. Okay. So there was no mail. Right. Okay, sorry about that. Surely that has no real significance to you. So let's go back to my audience. Whoever you are, I get a tiny few pockets of listeners now. Kind of interesting. I don't think many get the patience to listen to me at great lengths, but nevertheless, it is very pleasant anyway. Yeah, driving a manual car now, so a little bit tricky. So we've done 2 podcasts now about why we are here and the meaning of life, and it was still rushing through my head, and I wanted to do a little bit more research, and there was pieces missing from what I was trying to give to you from my notes yesterday. I might have actually mentioned this, but let me just go over it anyway. There is an essence that we can create our own reality, but it isn't easy. So with certain amount of strife and repetition and getting up early in the morning and doing hard tasks, and when there's a curveball thrown at you, you got to just dust yourself down, pick up the pieces, continue and strive on. That is always very tricky. That sort of tallies into the world of virtual reality. So virtual reality, everything is fairly easy. You can describe and imagine anything, and it comes to fruition straight away. So here we go. We could put another theory out. Are we on the hardest level of this game that we're in? That could be another possibility. However, this theory can be shot down in a number of ways. Now, what I did actually last night is an interesting thing. I was just looking up a little philosophy quotations about the meaning of life, and I didn't really. There was a few things, and a lot of them go back down to the essence of like being non-materialistic and pursuit of happiness, which I totally agree with. But I just wanted a little bit more of a rounding feeling to the podcast. And the one thing, if you can ever look it up, is Stanley Kubrick, one of the greatest directors of all time. Just if you've got the patience to go through his movies, you will be unbelievably surprised how subtle and amazing they are. And how many hidden meanings are behind what he does. But one of this article, he did it with the Playboy magazine. Of all places, you look at you can find these things. It's going to be there, and the writer just asked him like a couple of questions regarding like the meaning of life or something, and he was saying that from childhood we live in a world which seems enchanting and beautiful, and we seem to be centered around it, which is some of the stuff I mentioned yesterday. And then over time there appears to be death and despair and suffering, and then you see the world's crimes which occur, and it all becomes a very daunting. But the strive of man over time to grow up and through those pains and sufferings and understanding of the nature of his or her reality goes through those trials and tribulations, and realizes that to actually even find out the meaning of life would take away life's meaning, which nicely fit in with what I said about things being right in front of your nose. So good things to ponder on and concepts. And again, nothing in this realm of ideas gives you anything concrete to work with. However, I don't know, there's something that rings a bell with all of this stuff, and I'm not sure if this is giving you much in the way of things to work with here. Just to remember as well is that there is people that do attain a certain religion. So the ones that are just like the nihilists that do not believe in anything and there's no purpose to life or anything like that, they don't have great health prospects. They die off pretty soon. They turn to drugs. They turn to instant gratification. The science is definitely well against the nature of people that take on that mindset. And again, you can sort of understand to another extent that why we have that part of our brains which wants to be enchanted and mystified by life, because if we don't, then we have a very dangerous path of destruction afterwards. So but on it, with the search of the meaning, I don't necessarily say that you have to believe in a god in the sky that flies around or anything like that, but to actually understand meanings and purposes behind things doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have this god. The meaning, if you surround yourself in the world of philosophy, there is plenty of meaning within there. So the main things are, with the philosophy side of things, is to seek peace, goodness, liberty, freedom, and discovery, and just keep on those mindsets and push it as far as you can. So I think that the meaning can occur within those prospects, just to because obviously if we try to attain our ultimate goal, it's all combined within those pursuits. And just the one little thing more to round off the series is I would say that I'm going to go with this. I'm going to push this forward as a true statement. The noblest cause for us is for the wise to protect the innocent. For innocence is the most beautiful object in our universe. And what I am describing is love.